Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the rugged and historical region of Fort Tejon, California, a fascinating area located at the southern end of the San Joaquin Valley. About 50 miles northwest of Los Angeles, and nestled near the Tehachapi Mountains, this location provides a unique blend of topography, climate, and wildlife that creates beauty and danger. Fort Tejon is surrounded by rolling hills, covered in oak woodlands, mixed with chaparral, all under the watch of towering Tehachapi peaks to the south. The climate here is Mediterranean, meaning the area experiences hot, dry summers, with temperatures that can soar into the 90s, or even hotter. Contrasted by cool, wet winters, snow is common in the higher elevations, adding another layer of challenge to living in this harsh yet beautiful land. In 1837, this region was a wild frontier, and the mountains were filled with grizzly bears. The vast landscape was mostly untouched by modern development, populated primarily by indigenous tribes, frontiersmen, and trappers who braved the wilderness in search of resources. Today's bustling freeways and polluted air were preceded by an open frontier fraught with danger and adventure. The local plant life was dominated by coast live oak, sycamore, and chaparral shrubs, which provided cover for a variety of animals that called the area home. In addition to small mammals like rabbits and squirrels, the large fauna included deer, mountain lions, and the region's apex predators, grizzly bears. These bears, often referred to as California grizzlies, were much larger and more aggressive than their black bear counterparts, weighing upwards of 800 pounds and standing over 8 feet tall when on their hind legs. The fort itself, now a historic landmark, was built much later, in 1854, to serve as a military post for the United States Army, which was tasked with protecting settlers from attacks by hostile Native American tribes. However, in 1837, the area was untamed and full of dangers that lurked around every corner. Today's story involves one of those dangers, a fatal encounter between Peter Lebeck and one of the region's formidable grizzly bears. On October 17, 1837, near Fort Tejon, Peter had set out to hunt him one of the giant grizzlies that roamed the territory. His exact age and occupation remain a mystery to historians, but some speculate that he might have been a trapper or a frontiersman, given the time period and ruggedness of the area. Trappers in the early 19th century often ventured deep into the wilderness in search of fur-bearing animals like beavers, which were highly valuable at the time. These men were well acquainted with the dangers of their profession, and they faced not only hostile wildlife, but also extreme weather, rough terrain, and occasional conflict with Native American tribes. Liebeck's story lives on thanks in part to the gravestone that was found much later, inscribed with the chilling words, "Killed by bear." This simple epitaph suggests that Liebeck was alone at the time of his death, or was found shortly after the attack, his body likely bearing the brutal marks of the grizzly's powerful claws and jaws. It was worth noting that grizzly bears were highly feared by early settlers and trappers in California. These bears were known for their immense size, territorial nature, and ferocity when provoked. Unlike black bears, which tend to avoid human contact, grizzlies in this region were not easily deterred and were far more aggressive when threatened or surprised. Given the year of the attack, it's possible that Liebeck was one of many men who traveled west during the early stages of American expansion into California, long before the gold rush brought waves of settlers into the region. Life on the frontier was harsh, and even the best prepared individuals could fall victim to the untamed wilderness. The events leading up to Peter Liebeck's attack are largely unknown, but we can infer some likely scenarios based on the historic context and behavior of grizzly bears. In 1837, the California wilderness was largely undisturbed by human activity, providing the perfect habitat for the state's largest population of grizzly bears. These bears were known to roam vast territories in search of food, particularly in the fall months, when they would aggressively fatten up before the winter hibernation season. It's possible that Liebeck encountered the bear during one of these feeding periods. Fort Tejon was surrounded by open grasslands and oak-studded hills, a landscape where bears could easily remain hidden in dense brush until the last moment. Given the bear's predatory nature, Liebeck may have inadvertently stumbled upon it while the animal was foraging for acorns, berries, or small game. Grizzlies, especially when surprised or feeling cornered, are known to attack without warning. It's likely that Liebeck, armed with only basic tools or a simple firearm typical of the time, had little chance to defend himself against such a powerful adversary. Historical accounts suggest that the bear inflicted several injuries, likely mauling Liebeck with its enormous claws and delivering powerful bites. Grizzly bears have a bite force of over 1,000 pounds per square inch, capable of crushing bones with ease. The attack would have been swift and brutal, leaving Liebeck with little chance of survival. The region's isolation and lack of advanced medical care meant that even if he had survived the initial attack, he would have been far from help, succumbing to his injuries shortly thereafter. Peter Lebeck tragically did not survive the encounter, making him one of the earliest documented fatalities from a bear attack in California. His gravestone, discovered decades later, remains one of the few pieces of evidence of his existence and his fatal encounter with the grizzly bear. As for the bear, its fate is unknown. In the 19th century, it was common for local hunters or trappers to seek revenge on bears that killed or injured people, so it's possible that the bear was hunted down in the days following the attack. However, no records of such a hunt exist, and the bear's age, health, or whether it had cubs remain a mystery. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon offers ad-free early access to our episodes for just $3 a month. Your support goes a long way in helping us continue to make educational and entertaining content like this. The California grizzly, once a symbol of the state's wildness and power, was driven to extinction by the early 20th century due to overhunting and habitat loss. Today, the story of Peter Liebeck serves as a reminder of the dangers faced by those who ventured into the wilderness in search of fortune or survival, and the small town of Liebeck still bears his name. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Could Liebeck have avoided the attack if he'd carried a more advanced firearm, or if he had been accompanied by other trappers? Was the bear's aggression due to hunger, or was it possibly defending a territory or cubs in the vicinity? How would modern safety measures such as bear spray or better understanding of bear behavior have influenced this encounter? Peter Liebeck's tragic death in 1837 is a haunting reminder of the unpredictable and often dangerous interactions between humans and wildlife. In a time when the wilderness was largely unexplored and untamed, even the most seasoned frontiersman could fall victim to nature's fiercest predators. I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode transports us to the quiet, forested community of West Milford, New Jersey, a place where the lines between human civilization and untamed wilderness blur. Surrounded by towering oaks, maples, and the shimmering waters of High Crest Lake, this picturesque town might seem like the perfect place to escape the chaos of modern life, but beneath its peaceful facade, something darker lurks in the dense woods. Black bears are no strangers to these parts. Residents of West Milford have grown accustomed to spotting them from time to time, wandering through their backyards, or rummaging through their trash bins. Yet even in an area where nature and neighborhoods overlap, there are encounters that shake people to their core, moments where the wild reminds us of its raw, uncontrollable power. Today we'll dive into one such encounter that left a lasting mark on a family and an entire community. Ronald Jelinek was an 82-year-old retired local who spent his days enjoying the peace and tranquility of suburban life. Ronald had lived in West Milford for years, sharing his home with his beloved dog. He'd built his life here, embracing the town's slower pace. Friends and family described Ronald as a kind, thoughtful man who was deeply connected to his community. On the night of July 24th, 2020, Ronald's usual routine was disrupted in the most terrifying way imaginable. Like most nights, Ronald took his dog for a short walk before settling in for the evening. Little did he know his decision to leave the garage door open for just a few minutes would lead to an encounter that would forever change how he viewed the place he called home. As Ronald made his way back to his home, he felt something strange in the air. Maybe it was the stillness, or perhaps it was the deepening shadows that stretched out across his driveway. In any case, he hurried his pace, unaware that danger was already lurking inside his garage. When Ronald rounded the corner and caught sight of the garage, his blood ran cold. The dim light from inside cast eerie shadows, but one shadow in particular wasn't like the others. It moved. There, standing behind his refrigerator, was a bear. Not just any bear. This one had the look of a creature that had grown accustomed to human food, making it bolder than most. In a moment that seemed to stretch out for an eternity, Ronald froze. He could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up as the bear, startled by his sudden presence, turned toward him. For a split second their eyes met, and Ronald could see the wild hunger in the animal's gaze. Then, without warning, the bear lashed out, swiping at his face with one powerful paw. Ronald stumbled backward, his hand flying to his face where blood began to pour from deep gashes. The pain was sharp, but the adrenaline coursing through his veins kept him on his feet. He knew he had to get away, had to put distance between himself and the predator before it could strike again. Somehow, in the chaos, Ronald managed to retreat, backing out of the garage as the bear, momentarily distracted, turned its attention back to the refrigerator. It had been after the food all along. The bear's claws had left deep wounds on Ronald's face that would later require over 30 stitches to close. His heart raced as he realized just how close he'd come to being killed. The garage, his garage, a place that had always been a mundane part of his daily life, had become a battleground between man and beast. As Ronald was rushed to the hospital for treatment, authorities were called in to handle the situation. West Milford police arrived quickly, and the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife soon set up a trap in the High Crest Lake area, where the bear had been spotted multiple times over the course of the week. The neighborhood was on edge, with many wondering if the bear would return before it was captured. The following Tuesday, the trap was successful. The bear was caught, and after careful consideration, the decision was made to euthanize it. The bear had become too comfortable around humans, posing a serious risk to public safety. Though it stood only 5 feet tall when on its hind legs, small for a black bear, it had developed a pattern of breaking into homes and raiding food supplies. In the eyes of the Department of Environmental Protection, it was only a matter of time before someone else got hurt. It was acting out of human-habituated motives and wasn't protecting itself or cubs. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, link below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes. For just $3 per month, you can help us continue to bring you stories of survival and suspense like this one. As for Ronald, he was fortunate. After receiving over 30 stitches to close the wounds on his face, he returned home to recover, but the emotional scars of that night would take much longer to heal. Ronald declined to comment on the attack, perhaps wanting to put the terrifying ordeal behind him. The incident sparked a heated debate in the community. Could this terrifying encounter have been prevented? Some, like West Milford Police Chief James DeVore, believed that Ronald's decision to leave his garage door open was the key factor that led to the attack. After all, the bear had been lured inside by the smell of food. Keeping food in the garage, combined with the open door, had created the perfect storm for a bear encounter. Others, however, see a bigger issue at play. Cody McLaughlin, the executive director of the New Jersey Outdoor Alliance, argues that the state's black bear population has reached dangerous levels. He cites the West Milford attack as proof that there are simply too many bears, leading them to encroach on human spaces in search of food. The Alliance has been pushing for a reopening of state lands to hunters, especially as bear complaints have skyrocketed in recent years. In fact, records show that bear-related complaints in New Jersey had jumped by 62% in 2020 compared to the previous year. The debate surrounding the state's bear population management rages on, with hunters and environmentalists clashing over how to keep bears and people safe. Could stricter wildlife management policies have prevented the attack on Ronald Jelinek? Or was it simply an unfortunate consequence of living in such close proximity to wild animals? And what of the bear? Was its death inevitable, or was it merely doing what any wild animal would do, seeking out food in a world where its natural habitat is shrinking? This encounter leaves us with more questions than answers. Have bear populations reached a tipping point? Should homeowners in bear-prone areas be more cautious, or is this responsibility on the state to take action? What do you think? I will gladly read or reply to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's story takes us to Kodiak Island, Alaska, a land of breathtaking natural beauty, but also one of raw and untamed wilderness. This island is more than just a rugged landscape. It's steeped in military history. Situated in the Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island has long played a role in the U.S. military operations. From serving as a World War II outpost to housing one of the largest Coast Guard bases today, Kodiak's wilderness also offers some of the best hunting and fishing opportunities in North America, drawing in outdoors enthusiasts eager to test their skills against nature. But with its allure comes danger, and the top predator of Kodiak is none other than the Kodiak bear, the largest brown bear in the world. Senior Airman Brady Penn, who alongside his father, Steve, embarked on what they thought would be a routine hunting expedition on Kodiak Island until they came face to face with one of these fearsome bears. Senior Airman Brady Penn, a 25-year-old stationed at Travis Air Force Base, California, never anticipated that a hunting trip would turn into a battle of survival. A driven and disciplined individual, Brady grew up learning the importance of preparedness, a mindset further strengthened by his military service. When Steve called to inform him of winning a coveted hunting lottery to elk hunt on Kodiak Island, it was a dream come true. The father-son duo immediately began planning for what would be an expedition of a lifetime. In the weeks leading up to the hunt, Brady and his father spared no effort in preparing themselves for the treacherous terrain and weather conditions of Alaska. They spent hours at the range, honing their marksmanship, testing their equipment, and studying survival techniques. Their goal was to be as ready as possible for the harsh environment. They meticulously packed the right clothing, gear, and food for a week-long stay in the wilderness. Brady's military training emphasized resilience and readiness, qualities that would be put to the ultimate test. As they arrived at the blustery dock in Kodiak on October 14, 2021, nerves mixed with excitement. The flight of Kodiak was turbulent, and the forecast called for unrelenting wind and rain throughout their stay. Despite these conditions, Brady and Steve were determined to push through and make the best of their once-in-a-lifetime hunt. Little did they know their hunting adventure was about to take a dangerous turn. On their second day of hunting, Brady and his father managed to bring down an enormous 1,200-pound bull elk. It was a monumental victory, but their work was far from over. Processing the meat from such a large animal would take hours, and packing it back to camp would require several trips. After carefully wrapping the meat and hanging it to keep scavengers away, they left the carcass for the night, planning to return the next morning to retrieve the rest. The next day, as they approached the site, something felt off. The game bag they had tied to a branch as a marker was no longer visible. Concerned, they prepared themselves for the possibility of a scavenger lurking nearby. Brady loaded a round into his rifle's chamber and began speaking loudly to alert any wildlife of their presence. At about 50 yards from the carcass, the stillness of the morning was shattered by the unmistakable sound of cracking branches. Out of the corner of his eye, Brady saw a massive Kodiak bear charging toward him with terrifying speed. The bear was less than 10 yards away, its head low and flattened ears signaling full aggression. Brady barely had time to turn before the bear swiped at him, sending him flying into the tall grass. He landed face down, his rifle pinned beneath him, and felt the crushing weight of the bear's paw pressing down on his back. Panic surged through him as he realized he was completely at the mercy of the bear. In an instant, the weight lifted. The bear had turned its attention to Brady's father, who was now fighting for his life. The bear swiped Steve's rifle away and pinned him to the ground. Brady, acting purely on instinct, got to his feet and fired his rifle at the bear, hitting it in the rear hip. The bear let out a roar and bolted into the thick brush, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Though shaken, both Brady and his father survived the terrifying encounter with only minor injuries. Brady's clothes were shredded, and he had a few scratches on his back where the bear's claws had torn through, but his military-grade backpack had absorbed much of the bear's weight. Steve, despite sustaining puncture wounds on his hands, had been spared more serious injury thanks to his protective gloves. The attack was clearly a territorial attack based on the bear's claim of the elk carcass. The bear wasn't surprised as the men approached while making noise, and there was no report of cubs having been seen near the attack site. Speaking of Cubs, our Cub tier membership on Patreon, link below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. The bear, wounded but still powerful, had fled into the dense brush and did not return. Brady and Steve quickly gathered their equipment and retreated to a safer location. Their military training had proven essential, not only in their survival, but also in maintaining their composure during this attack. As they reached the ridge overlooking their camp, they called for extraction using their satellite phone. Unfortunately, due to worsening weather conditions, the earliest they could be picked up was 24 hours later. That night the winds howled against their tent, but neither could sleep. Every noise from the surrounding wilderness kept them on edge, knowing full well that another encounter with the bear was not impossible. It was a long, sleepless night, but Brady's survival instincts kept him alert and ready for any threat. The encounter with the Kodiak bear leaves many burning questions. Why did the bear charge so aggressively? Was it the bear that removed the game sack from the branch? Could Brady and his family have avoided the attack by taking different precautions, or was it simply an unavoidable outcome of being in bear country? One thing is certain, the presence of the elk carcass had likely attracted the bear, and once the bear discovered the hunters nearby, it reacted out of territorial or defensive instincts. Some may wonder if more noise or earlier retreat from the area could have prevented the attack. However, in the wild, such situations are unpredictable, and even the most prepared individuals can find themselves in dangerous situations. Brady's experience underscores the importance of preparedness, not just physically, but mentally, in facing the unexpected. Brady's encounter with the massive Kodiak bear serves as a powerful reminder of the unpredictable nature of wilderness. No matter how prepared you are, there are always variables beyond your control. After reviewing the facts surrounding this attack, I'm left with a few questions for you. Could Brady and Steve have done anything differently to avoid this life-threatening encounter, or was it simply an inevitable risk of hunting in bear country? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so please post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.